This is Peres Owino, a writer-director, here with My Black is Transnational, because my Black is transnational.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of My Black is Transnational. My name is Dr. Kalechi Bay-Lamberts, and on this episode, I have the pleasure of talking with Ms. Peres Owino, who's an award-winning writer, actress, producer, comedian, and more, African artist, all the way from Kenya, who'll be talking to us about her transnational experience and one of her more popular works, Bound, and also the documentary that she just did with Jada Pinkett Smith called Queens of Africa, Njinga. But before we get into that, let's go through our formalities. If this is your first time listening to My Black is Transnational, you can find this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, Spotify, Google, like Stitcher, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, Anchor. Please be sure to find it, rate and review it, give it 5 stars. Really appreciate it so that we can continue to tailor our content for your listening pleasure. Also, check out our website at www.blacktransnational.com. It's a one-stop shop information source for everything that you need regarding this podcast. Check out the history of it. You can listen to old episodes from season 1. You can learn a little bit more about our guests and their biography. Stay in touch, get in contact with them, I should say. So definitely suggest that you check out our website. And then also, you can follow us on social media. You can follow me, the host, at @BlackTransnational_. You can also follow the podcast at Black Transnational Podcast on Instagram. We're on Twitter at MBI Transnational. And you can follow the page on Facebook as well at Black Transnational Podcast. So we're all over the place. I think we're getting better with Twitter. I always say that every time. But yes, so that's the way you can get in touch with us. We please ask that you continue to support us. We really appreciate your listening. All right. So our guest and this episode, I don't even know what to title it yet. Actually, I don't know. I'm still getting there. I mean, I'm gonna title this something good when I get to it. Maybe about the bridge or one day. But I really enjoyed this episode, and I had to just do like an actual introduction to this video. Not because I was being formal, but because the way this episode really went was completely organic, and it was not necessarily what I expected, but it was everything that it needed it to be. Because we really just got into talking. It was like we were really sitting at an African restaurant eating suya and just gisting about what it is to be African, what it means to be transnational, what it means to be able to create a bridge to support our brothers and sisters, the perspectives of being African versus African American, and how do we continue to reconcile, and how do we continue to move forward, and using that bridge to be able to fortify ourselves in our transnational identity and encourage others to be transnational, amongst so many other things. It was a very raw, authentic conversation, emotional at the end. I think we really talk about our ancestry and what it means, that being that one day, to talk about our ancestors' wildest dreams and us being the one day for our ancestors. I thought that was a very powerful moment that I hope you all can also feel as well. But the conversation itself was live. And again, Peres, I appreciate your candidness, your authenticity, just the African in you. I love everything about it. That's why I said you're my adopted sister. And I appreciate you so much for your time and your insight and just your wisdom and knowledge. So I really do hope that you all, if you're watching on YouTube, you can check it out. We're going to, jump into this episode right now. But for those who are listening on the audio version of this podcast, we're going to get into it. And you'll see that the conversation just kind of starts right off, and we're just talking and laughing about things related to being African. And then we start to build and get into the real richness and the depth in which our conversation really navigates into, or evolves into, I should say. So, yeah. So, I mean, if you don't know Peres Owino, you haven't heard about her, one, check out the work that she's done. And I would strongly recommend Bound. I've been saying that for a while. And 2, this is the moment. I definitely say that you will enjoy this episode. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Peres Owino, director, producer, writer, superstar. Enjoy.
We call a spade and not a big spoon.
Yeah.
They will call you out on your shit. But Africans are quick to both verbal and physical violence.
Mm-hmm. Especially the like verbal one. That's like one of our strengths. That's like one of our magics. We are
and they will tell you, listen,
very strong.
Do not approach an African if you don't want the truth.
Mm-hmm.
They will not lie to you.
The transparency. And what like Nigerians are like, is like our special ability. Verbal insults. Ha. Yeah, Africa can insult you. Like Africa can insult you. Where you feel it. You don't even need to like get physical. Like it's really, the thing pains you when someone says something about you and they tell you the truth about yourself and they say, look.
About yourself. And giving you examples.
Yeah, it's a powerful pain.
And the best thing about Africans is just how Africans will tell the truth even at a funeral. You know, in America over here, when somebody dies, they're like, he was the love of AA. An African will be like, this one was witchcraft involved with one. This one gave me hardship from the womb. This one is going to go give heaven a hard time. I'm just praying. Africans do not have time for lies. And I love that because they're honest.
Oh, yeah.
You always know where they stand. Their facial expressions are constantly giving them away. Even if an African wanted to lie, the face has already given him away.
You can read them. I'm very much so. It's very hard. Very hard to. My wife says it all the time. She's just like, my facial expression, when I'm like, my kids, if something's wrong, she already knows, like, I can't hide it.
Like, remember somebody saying something stupid around an African? No, an English person, they will always just do this. An African, immediately, the moment the stupid has hit the airspace, the face has jumped. Then they look for another African. Who else in the room?
Who can relate?
Who else has seen this?
They're looking for someone to confirm, like to confirm if this stupidity is real. I'd be like,
you look at each other like, was it only me? And the other person goes, I also had it. And you're like, is it true? I don't know. I know. Then we laugh. But then if they make a mistake of asking you, what are you laughing at? The African has no tact. I'm laughing at the stupid thing you just said in the room right now. Did not everybody else hear this stupid thing that was just said in the room? Oh, God. And like when I came to America the first time, people always used to tell me, Peres, you need tact. I was like, tact for what? You all had it. Everybody's face, maybe you were hiding it better, but you all had this was stupid. Why are we now hiding it? We're wasting our time.
Exactly.
Call it out and say, my dear, that was stupid.
And they move on, right? And you move
on.
But you see, the thing about it here in the Western world is that you can't move on. Because when you say something insulting now, it's become the thing. And now like peppers them too much.
Yeah, I think because feelings have been given more weight over facts.
Exactly.
So how you feel is more important than what you said, than the fact that you just put in the room. And in Africa, I don't know how you have it in Igbo, but in Kenya, we have this phrase that says, "Asifunzwa na mamaye hufunzwa na ulimwengu." Basically means if you're not taught by your mother, the world will teach you. So usually when I say something that people are like, I said, that's just the world teaching, surely.
One way or the other, you have to learn, Abby.
You have to, because the reality of the fact is when you go out there and encounter the world, you will encounter the world. You will encounter people taught and raised by different people. You have to figure out how to have thick skin. You have to figure out how to engage without being completely torn apart by the engagement. You have to learn how to bend and not break. You have to be malleable as a human being because everybody's walking in with their own lens and their own experience, which does not invalidate yours, but also yours does not invalidate theirs. Right. So you have to understand you're always in an equal playing field. And that playing field, my dear, you can become in there playing chess, people are playing checkers, some are playing judo, the ball is going to hit you on the head. You have to be able to say, excuse me, I'm in your way. You have to know how to navigate the world. And I think Africans, because of what we have been expected to do, have learned how to navigate the world maybe a little bit better because we have been forced to. Africa is the only place where, you can come to the United States, you can go into Hollywood and do entertainment without ever having to know who Chinua Achebe is.
Oh, yeah. There are many people now who don't.
Yeah, but if you're an African, Ebuka tried doing this thing without knowing who William Shakespeare is.
How would they? You're not considered proper. And everybody strives to be proper.
Iambic pentameter, you don't know what that is? Oh my God. William Shakespeare. See, so there's this whole idea where we have been forced to ingest the world.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of ingesting the world, sometimes we have not had enough bandwidth or realize that we have to balance our bandwidth so that we can also ingest ourselves. That in some shape, way, or form, we have got to realize that the world is not the world without the African. And so the African stories are equally important to the whole narrative of how the world is today. You cannot have the world today as it is and ignore Africa. Because first of all, Africa is the source. Now you cannot say, oh my God, here we have water in a glass, without asking people, well, where did the water come from? Well, it's from the glass. No, it's not. The water is not from the glass. Where did the water come from? It's like saying the story of mankind without including Africa. Mankind is non-existent without Africa. Mm-hmm. So we as Africans also need to make the space, demand the space, take the space. In fact, don't have to demand it, just take it. We know we are good at that. Yeah. Just take your space, Baba.
But the thing about it is that we're good at doing that among ourselves in terms of taking up our own space, right? But then I feel like when there's the space that's occupied by non-Blacks, the hesitation is, it's like, let's go and collect. But no. But if it's my sister, my other fellow sister from East, West, North Africa, there's hesitation in saying, there's no hesitation, I should say, in being able to just go and collect that space and say, move, shift.
Yes.
But I feel like that same energy needs to be applied into the spaces that matter more.
Yeah, and also I'm going to maybe do a little shift in that. I think it's very problematic if you tell your sister to move so that you can occupy the space, because then you don't understand the value of your sister in that space.
Yes.
Nothing has ever been achieved one man by themselves. I would not have gotten as far as I wanted to or told the story as best as I wanted to without Nene, who was in the room with me. There's power in being more than one person in a room. You validate each other's voice, sometimes. And the reality of the fact is these spaces that we're called into, the reason why they ask us into this space is because there is amongst certain people, producers, which I'm very grateful for, an awareness that they don't have all the information regarding this space. So they need the people who do. And they call the people in the room and say, hey, we want to do this, but we need you to take lead here because this is your space. Then you come in and you govern. And if I'm one of those people who, when people say, why people don't know our stories, I'm like, thank you very much. Because if they did, I'd be out of a job. See the silver lining in every negative situation. How you have been called to do something in that space. So instead of worrying about who doesn't know it, figure out how to get into that room.
And who's going to give it?
And fill that gap. Because I'll be honest, to me, Peres, it is not Brad Pitt's responsibility to tell my story.
Exactly.
It is not.
No.
And I don't get mad when Ron Howard walks around and does movies with no Black. I don't get mad.
Because it's not for him to tell.
That's Ron Howard telling his own story, man. Me, I'm going to tell mine. Now, what I have a problem with is when there's no opportunity to do that. But once the opportunity shows up, then come in and fill that space. And then let's support the people who are in that space doing that job. I'm very grateful for the Jada Pinkett Smiths of this world, because without Jada Pinkett Smith, there is no African queens.
Yeah.
So find the sisters and the brothers in the space who are holding the door for you. The Antoine Fuqua, who's opening the door for the brothers who are doing Shaka Zulu. There is a synergy that is required with the entire diaspora to tell these stories. Because sometimes I know there's some people who feel like these are our stories as Africans and nobody else in the diaspora story it is. But funnily enough, Njinga is the story of the diaspora, because at that point in time, the diaspora is being birthed. Where do you think the people who ended up, the ancestors of the people who ended up in this diaspora came from? Africa.
Yeah.
And they did not. And to say they're not, this Africa does not belong to them is to say that they were sitting in Africa and just said, you know what, guys? I'm bored. I want to see what's on the other side of the ocean. That's not how that story happened. You cannot look upon the Jamaican, the Afro-Brazilian, the African-American, and treat him with the same gaze as somebody from the UK who treats somebody who jumped on the Mayflower and was like, peace out. You know what I mean?
No.
It's a different
story.
Yeah. So there is a pain in there. There's a wound that is on both sides of the Atlantic, that's in the Caribbean. And we have to, and this is just me talking about my own philosophy.
Yeah.
Find each other. and give to those who lost Africa what it is that they lost. And from those people, you will get what it is that you've forgotten. Because there are things about Ifa that are sitting in Cuba and in Brazil. There are things about who we are that are sitting in North Carolina. There are people who remember bits and pieces of who we are, and it's spread. It's like finding pieces of a jigsaw puzzle right across the diaspora.
And we got to come together to make it fit.
You gotta fit it, man.
Yeah.
I am not of that hope. Listen, I take all of them. Even people who say, well, Kanye, look, Kanye is problematic. But Kanye is still also ours. Because if you will take all those shitty African presidents, but not take Kanye, then I don't know what your problem. All those shitty African presidents are destroying an entire continent.
Even to this day, like even with like the Nigerian election right now that's happening, we're talking about this pain right now, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that Kanye quote, do not quote me on that one.
I know.
But this is between you and I.
No, I'm with you.
But when they think about things like that, so for me, like when things happen where Kanye goes and says what Kanye says, then I go back to myself and I ask myself, what's that wound the brother is talking about? What's going on with that brother? Or what's this conversation he's trying to trigger? How can then I, as an African, speaking on behalf of the ancestors, what can I do to that conversation that transforms? Because I fundamentally believe, as Africans, as the source, I don't know any mother who watches her children squabble and be like, I don't care. Doesn't exist. I'm a fundamental believer in grace over judgment. That if I am seeing this guy and this guy fighting, then my question becomes, what can I add to this space that changes how they see each other?
Yeah.
How do I change that? And I come from that space because I love to create pieces of things that create dialogue and bring humanity closer to each other as opposed to far apart. Capitalism is doing the latter. I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about us pulling apart from each other. Capitalism is doing that effortlessly.
It's working
with
well.
Poverty and greed, and so it behooves us to figure out how to bring us back to community. You know what I mean?
But that was a big part in what we talk about with Bound. And I was supposed to do this introduction thing, but we're just in already, so I'll do that later.
Oh, we're in it now. In the notes section.
Yeah, we're in it now. I'll do the introduction, everything later. Peres Owino, award-winning writer and everything.
Yeah.
We'll do all that. But I really want to get into Bound and also the other stories because one, I this podcast, we really talk about everything that you brought up. And one key thing that I really liked about what you brought in the documentary was the bridge, right? And this is what my transnationalism is about, that bridge that connects us. Because I always felt like we have the ability, especially us Africans that arrive into the country, we have the ability to be able to bring them back, right? There was one of the participants in the documentary that talked about his wife being from Liberia and how she became his passport, right? And I think that idea is what is a key example of what I've been trying to promote here with the idea of transnational, is that we have the ability to be able to go back and forth. Like you just gave me an example of a picture of your people in Kenya, right? You're still connected to home, even though you've been here, you're thriving, you're doing everything here, but you still have people that are, heavily telling you what's going on. And I believe that there's so many of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora that are looking for that. And we have the responsibility of creating that bridge. Because I believe, as you said, the puzzles were spread everywhere.
Everywhere.
And history shows that everybody was involved in this, like in the trade of people and the trade of our people and our history was spread across. So that also means that we played a role in the development and the building of the rest of the world. Therefore, I feel like we have a right to be able to explore and be connected to that because our ancestors were forced into being part of these places and building them from the ground up, whether it was in India, whether it was in the Middle East, whether it was in Asia.
Everywhere. You go to Paris, you go to Belgium and you see Congo. You just see Congo's money on that. Belgium, you're just like, this is the money that, if this money was returned to Congo, Congo would look like this.
Yes. I mean, you're talking about that. That's the blood, the blood of the people who died in that country, right? In those times, you're talking about what, over 15 million? Crazy. And so I think about that and I say, okay, now when we talk about the responsibility of telling our stories and being able to connect and create that connection and change the way we see each other, what inspired you to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to use my gift of storytelling to be able to create something poetic, as in a way of framing it, whereas two brothers connected, one was separated, and because of the time and just all the information that was that was told to these two separate relatives that was separated, their descendants cross each other and they don't even recognize one another. How do we now get to that point where we can be able to have us see each other clearly and be able to encourage each other to travel with each other?
I'm one of those people who, when people challenge me, I pick up the challenge. Like when someone dares me, I pick up the dare. Like, I'm like, oh, are we doing this? Like when somebody goes, I remember a friend of mine says, I bet you can't do stand-up comedy. Because she knew me enough to know that the only way to get me up on that microphone was to dare me. And I was like, well, watch this. And I remember someone once asked, how come you people never came looking for us?
I was going to ask that next. That was they said that in Black Panther. It was a theme in there.
And my response to them now is, well, here I am. I'm looking. Because it's a legit question, but it's a question that almost can't be answered simplistically.
Yeah.
Because what was so problematic about the time was, let me start by saying this so that people understand what I mean when I say things. So I'll give I'll start with this example first so people understand exactly what perspective I'm coming from. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question first.
Okay.
If today, February 28th, 2023, the United States, Europe, China, Russia, all the powerful Western nations decide that they're going to go back into Africa and recolonize it, what will Africa do?
Nothing.
What can Africa do?
Nothing.
Now, what makes people think that 2023 was any different from 1600?
The illusion of freedom.
The pressure has never been left off of Africa for hundreds of years. That pressure started in the 1600s and it's still there.
Still here.
Still there.
Yeah.
It got worse because what happened is it got worse. Africa has never been able to meet that pressure because while our money is making the West go farther, it's pushing Africa lower.
Down.
The West, if Africa was like, oh, we're going to fight back. Well, do we have any weapons of mass destruction? No. My dears, do you guys make any guns? No, we don't. Bombs? No. Tanks? No. What are you going to do? Well, we might throw stones. It is literally what Palestinians are doing right now in the Middle East. Throwing stones.
Yeah.
And so if you understand the power, that dynamic, that power dynamic, and this idea of killing people in mass, which Africans have never done. The Africans have always been, combat one-on-one. Like whoever it is stronger is going to win. But now people are droning things. People can just drone and bomb out places. If you understand that you're dealing with a community of people who've always warred amongst each other, and from the outside comes this pressure that has Maxim guns. I mean, you have just being mowed down, gunpowder. You have that happening. And then you understand the fear of a leader whose job is to make sure that there are people who are left behind to celebrate the ancestors. Because I think one of the problems is a lot of people don't understand how the Africans at the time thought. And because you don't understand, you're looking at them at the 21st century lens. And so you're putting your own values and your own fears and whatever on theirs. But you don't understand that back then, Maslow's hierarchy was food, clothing, shelter. Family was the most important thing.
Yep, that's it.
So I try to protect my family as far as I can spread my arms. But what you don't realize is with the institution of enslavement, the family was being forced to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as people were being pulled away until eventually you get taken. So who's going to come to look for you when the people who would have come to look for you are where you are?
Yeah. And they're spread apart.
Yeah, they've been taken. The people who would have looked for you are now in Jamaica. they're in Brazil, they're in Colombia, they're in India, they're in the Middle East. So then it becomes a part where there's a lot of people waiting to be looked for. But the people who they're waiting to look for them are no longer here to look for them.
Yeah. But my sister, what resources? We also have to think about that.
But hold on. Oh. We're still going. And then the ones who are left behind. Now colonialism comes when they told, okay, now you guys, we're going to keep your slaves in your own country. So you can't even move.
Yeah. How?
You go where? You need a badge that has been signed by a white person to have you move from this place to this place. You're paying taxes in your own land.
Yeah.
You know, you're locked in now. So now you're having the same issue where no matter where you are and you're part of the diaspora, survival becomes key.
Number one.
I need to survive.
That's it.
Yeah. So now everybody's surviving. Then the 60s rolls in. You know, everybody's surviving, everybody's trying to stay alive. The 60s roll in. And the difference between the 60s, what I think was most powerful about the 60s is the 60s, if you think about colonialism in Kenya, which started off in the late 1800s, if you think about like the Berlin Conference, 1800s coming into what was going on in the 60s. Now you have things like the Kennedy airlift that took Barack Obama's father to the United States.
Yeah.
So now Tom Mboya and his folks are now linking up with the Patrice Lumumbas. Now we are now finding each other. And now Pan-Africanism is growing because now Martin Luther King is in the same room with Tom Mboya, who's in the same room with Kwame Nkrumah, who's in the same room with Malcolm X. And you're like, whoa, so you guys, how do we do this? Then when you think what happens when the diaspora links up is, I don't know why people never think about these things. So for me, numbers.
They never understand how to communicate with each other because of the language. Yeah,
but like in the 60s, but for us, how we do not realize that most African countries are getting their independence in 60, 61, 62. Yeah. And the Civil Rights Act is being signed at the same time. Like, are you not understanding that it took this continent and this continent to fight for each other?
For something to happen.
It took Africans in the United Nations saying, yo, can't be killing Black people in the United States of America, man, and coming and telling us some bullshit.
Yeah. And
you gotta act. Yeah, you can't do that because you're not, then first of all, you went to a war to beat off Hitler and expansionism, and yet you're sitting in our countries. What are you talking about? But also what was important is now, the reason why they were able to take over, the reason why is because they were doing things in their own language. Writing documents in their own language, and people were signing things they didn't understand. And I always say one of the biggest mistakes the white man ever did was to teach the Black man his language and not learn ours.
Yeah.
Because now we know you. We know your language. We know how you think. We know what words matter to you. You don't know us, but we know you. So now we could come back in your own native tongue and use your language and our reasoning to tell you you're making no sense. All right? And then begin to shift. But the thing is, I'm very hopeful for Africa because A, we're the youngest continent. B, look at what first, second generation out of colonialism is achieving. Can you imagine 10 generations out?
My goodness. Yeah.
That Black excellence is about to hit a note that the rest of us are going to be like, whoa.
I'm telling you, like, people are scared of that. People are scared of that. It's coming.
I listen to Fireboy sing and my soul is I'm just like, and what I love about it is that music did it first because music was the first conference of the diaspora meeting with each other and saying, you guys, let's perform together. Because you know, Black folks, we'll always start with the party.
Absolutely.
We'll always start with the music. Why? Because hey, come on. You know, we know who we are.
Always the vibes.
We are quick to party, slow to war. So everybody out here in the streets talking about a race war, I'll be like, you guys can have a race war. We'll be at the barbecue, dude. We ain't got time for that. Y'all go fight. Somebody will show up. It won't be us because we'll be at the barbecue over here. But you know, if you want some chicken wings and you want to act right, come get some. But otherwise, we're not doing that stuff. So you have all this stuff happening. And it is the absence of understanding each other's history because we're too inundated with Jane Austen and Queen Elizabeth and all this nonsense that now we come at each other like, wait, where were you? What were you doing? What's wrong with you? But if you sit down and break bread with each other, you begin to say, instead of saying, what's wrong with you? How are you doing this? Why are you like this? Be like, dude, tell me your story. Then you hear that story. And then you're like, okay, quicker to grace, less to judgment. Now you understand what the battle is. Because as a Black person learning in America, hey, I don't know if you think you're not coming into this battle. I don't know if you think somehow you with a suit of armor. You don't. You're coming in here to understand that there's something also happening here that you have to decide whether you're going to be a part of it or not. Are you going to be here for the liberation of Black people or what are you here for? Because there's some people who are like, me, I'm just minding my own business. Yeah,
That's what
but
I was gonna say.
when the bullets start flying and the ropes start dropping, honey, ain't nobody's looking
It
to
doesn't
see
see
what
no
you have an
color. It doesn't
accent.
see no accent.
I've been
Doesn't know.
told, I've been yelled at the bus stop to go back to Africa for just literally standing at a bus stop. I've been called the N-word, literally standing at a bus stop. And nobody's going to be like, wait, could you talk? I just want to hear you say a few words so I can figure out which one you are.
Oh.
And the same thing happens in Europe, by the way. Because in America, when we come as Africans, we're the good blacks.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, we are not the good blacks. The African Americans are the good blacks.
Yeah.
See, so we have to also be very aware of what is at play here. And so that if you're ever in a space and somebody says, well, you guys are really very nice, you need to turn back and say, as opposed to what? Would I be, you'd think I'd still be like this if I spent my whole life being told I'm less than? You'd think I'd be like this if I was told my whole life that I'm a slave? You'd think I'd be like this? My dear. I had a friend of mine from Sierra Leone. Funny brother. He had the same situation happen to him where he was at a job and one of the workmates was like, you guys are different. You guys are nicer.
What does that mean?
And he said he laughed. And he said, don't let the African fool you. We go from 0 to machete in 60 seconds. Don't play with it.
0 to machete.
Boom! And I was just like,
nice one.
There's a truth to that.
Yeah, nice one.
I think and this is a question for you. How do Africans process the racial dynamics in the United States?
You know, I would tell you from my own opinion and my own experience growing up is like the idea when I was coming up here, growing up in Chicago, the racial experience was something that was like, I knew it was there, but it's none of my business. Right. And that was initially how it was. It's like, let's separate ourselves. Don't be like, Akatas, like that's not us. That's not us. Right. And I think
I'm assuming you've used that one.
Oh no, not me. But my parents have, right?
Put a disclaimer.
Yeah.
That derogatory word, because I hate that word. But
I don't word that. Yeah, no. I say that word because just for the sake of authenticity.
Like
we're gonna bleep that out, right? Because I have an episode called "Death to Akata." I do not like that word. But
I can't even do that word. Yes,
because it doesn't make any sense. And the thing about it is, but the idea there's this negative assimilation that always comes into. When we moved to this country, it was like, oh, those are like you said, those are the bad ones. We want to be the good boys, so let's separate ourselves. Let's put our head down and let's work and just worry about being Africans in America, and let's do all the African things, and let's not worry about those people. But like you said, at some point now, the next generation, you decide, oh, you want to come to Africa, you want to live a affluent life, but you have children, and you think that you can try your very best to prevent them from living in this American world when everything that they do is going to be American outside of your home. So you can't separate that. And then they're going to have children. And so at this point, and that, like you said, that bullet in that rope does not see accent, does not hear accent, does not see names and says, oh, Kelechi, oh, well, we're not going to hang. It doesn't matter. So that experience now has become a little bit more humbling for I would say for my parents' generation, where they now see that. I just had a call maybe when this whole George Floyd thing happened. Like my parents from Nigeria reached out and said, oh, did you know that African Americans were considered 3/5 a human being? That's
it.
I said, you didn't. I said, after all these years, I grew up in this country. You think I got in? But yeah, that's the mentality. They don't. The racial experience did not necessarily. They didn't think it applied to them, and I think now they realize.
So. And it's important to know this history, because I always tell people it is very important to know upon whose shoulders you're standing. Because if that battle is not fought, you're coming here in chains. Without Frederick Douglass, without that Civil War, you're coming in chains if you're coming at all. And we're like, oh, but that's history. But I'm like, no. History is constant. History doesn't stop because it happened to certain people. History is constantly happening.
Yeah.
Every single moment in your life is history continuing.
Yes.
Whatever has happened to your ancestors is in your DNA.
Yes.
It's a thread that doesn't stop just because it happened. The thread continues. It's a memory that keeps getting passed down. It's how your parents are treating you, because it's how they were treated and how they were treated. It's always coming forward. You cannot be like Like, I hate when people say, why are you guys different from African Americans? I'm like, please do not compare Africans to African Americans ever in your life, because the experiences are very different. What the when you grow up in a continent where the doctors, the lawyers, the presidents, the teachers, everybody looks like you, when you're constantly told you're excellent, when you're constantly told you're beautiful, you cannot compare that person with a person who's experiencing the opposite. That's a lie you're telling yourself, not to deal with the realities of the choices that this country has made. Please do not. I hate that. I hate that with a passion. I'm like, I'm not going to be complicit in your continual racism against my people. I'm sorry. We're not here for that. But I can tell you how to change the conversation so that we can fix this.
Yeah. So when you came to the country from Kenya, did it take some time for you to have this awakening? Or was it something that you immediately said, you know what, this doesn't feel right, this feels wrong, these people deserve this, that? Or was it, something that you had to, over the years, continue to learn through conversation, through dialogue, through arguments, whatever the case may be?
It's interesting because when I came to the United States, I already knew about Frederick Douglass. I'd already read the slave narratives. I already read all the different books because I was doing social change, I was doing international relations, and then I loved history. So when I saw this like little small picture in my history book of Black people in chains, I remember going, what is this? It's like a little small, it was literally this small. And I'm like, what is this? It seems like a very important part in human history, but it's a small picture like this.
They try to hide it.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the Holocaust. It was a small picture. I was like, what is this? We know when the picture is really tiny. They're trying to hide something.
Big problem,
like, what is this? So I went and started reading over, and I read the Hermetic Hypothesis. I mean, I read Karl Linnaeus. I was in it. And by the time I was done, I was like, oh, some bullshit. I said, I need to go to America and give African Americans. I was so incensed. And then the universe being what it is, landed me in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Black person.
Oh God, the whitest of place.
I was like, well, it doesn't seem to be that many Black people here. What is going on? And then I realized, but you also have to look back at your life and ask yourself why. Why are all these moments happening? But then I think also there was a need. I think the ancestors wanted also me not to lose sight of the bigger picture. Because sometimes you can be singularly focused, you forget that you're not painting an apple, you're painting an orchard. So don't forget. And so what it did was it humanized America for me, because I came and I had this idea and I was like, things need to be done. These people are, and so ending up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and getting to experience the Midwest and getting to experience Americans as Americans, it humanized Americans and they became just regular human beings. And I was like, okay, this is a conflict, or this is a wound that is happened to these humans. So now how do we fix this? And so the first thing that had to be done was, after my constant interactions, I live in Inglewood, so I'm really surrounded by a lot of Black people. I was surrounded by a lot of Black people. That's not the case anymore. It's
becoming
really
gentrified over there, isn't it?
Diversified, yeah. And so I was constantly in conversation with students, with my friends who were from Howard University. I mean, they were from Spelman, they were from Texas A&M. I mean, I was talking to all these Black people who were all in entertainment, and we were constantly going back and forth about Black people and Africans and Black. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to make a movie so we can have this conversation once and for all and be done. And I said, I wanted to make a movie that was like a conversation starter for Black people to be like, okay, let's have the facts. And I was talking to people, and then there's of course that interview with my friend, with the gentleman who found out that after 20 years, he didn't really know it. That shocked both of us while we were filming it. If you notice, we both
you paused, you was like, you like, I'm not judging. I
was like, oh my God, like this is a possibility. But even for him, he was like slapped by it, like, oh shit. And that's when and I think that was one of the first interviews I did. And I realized what the documentary needed to be. It needed to be informational. It needed to be not about who said what, when, where, and how. That's why we have that for like 2 minutes. But who are we? What does the other side not know? And and then what is it that is similar about us? And then how do we move forward?
Yes.
That is fundamentally important. And I began to realize that for me, when you say the concept of the bridge, it's not just, you don't just get to be, if you're a bridge builder, you don't just build one bridge.
No, you're
constantly building bridges.
Absolutely.
And hence, don't look at the apple, look at the forest.
Yes.
So for me, everything I do now, besides because there's some content that I do, even when elephants fight, is I'm trying to build a bridge between two groups of people who think they're so different. I don't care if it's blacks and Jews. I don't care if it's white, blacks and Africans and African Americans. I don't care if it's black and white. I don't care if it's Latino. Constantly. Like, this is who you are. You are all part of the source. You're all connected. So you're fighting with your cousin. You're fighting with your brother. You're all connected at the end of the day. And I feel like that is fundamentally how an African changes the conversation. When you find two people fighting, you don't go in and go like, yeah, where's my sword? You sit back and look and say, no. Like, it's what parents do. You look and you say, okay, I'm going to punish them both.
But first, I'm going to talk to them.
I'm going to talk to you, but I'm punishing you both. Why? Because you have to realize that you're in this shit together.
Yeah.
Period. If this world explodes, we're all going black, white, blue, green, yellow, purple. So while we're in it, can we figure out a way to make it work for all of us? So building bridges between people who find themselves on disparate sides of history. That's my thing. I love doing that. It's finding that kernel of where are they so similar that when you show it to them, they're like, dude, yeah, man, you went through that. I did too. God. Well, let's have a conversation about this. Yeah. That's a starting point of building friendships. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about this? I would say there's a I don't want to say a renaissance, but there's a growing practice now of people going back to Africa. I mean, Deti December, Ghana is becoming a thing. People are going to Sierra Leone. I mean, Nigeria sometimes. All right. But this idea now is becoming that second and third generation.
It should.
Yeah.
Literally, I thought that one of the hands of reparations should have been that the United States government pays round-trip ticket for every African American who wants to visit an African nation of their choice. That should be part of the reparations. You brought them here.
Let them go.
You better pay.
Sponsor them. Sponsor the trip back. It
shouldn't be coming out of pocket. It should not be coming out of pocket.
Yeah.
Pay. If you don't want to give people 40 acres and a mule, the least you can do, American Airlines.
You know what? You speak to something. You speak something that's very interesting, because I had a conversation with a friend about something very similar, and it was like, instead of the round trip, though, it was more making Black Americans' passport globalized to the point where they can be able to travel to these African countries for.
There's no ifs. It's not and. It's not or. And
do
that.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is not just Africa. It's a whole goddamn diaspora.
Yeah.
I'm talking Jamaica, Brazil, Colombia, all of it.
They should have free access to that. No issue.
You go where you want to go.
Go.
Where do you want to step? Kenya. Come on.
Yep.
You come in and we know this is the diaspora passport.
Man, I'm telling you, that's a game changer. Like
diaspora passport. Look at that.
You know, man, that was something that, like, I was like,
wow.
Because it was someone who, like, was working with the UN, and I said, if we can make that happen.
Yeah. I'm going to start talking about this diaspora passport and this, because I've been talking about the airlines for a while. I'm going to add this diaspora passport. There needs to be a diaspora passport. Look at us Black folks. You know that thing is going to be red, green, and
it's going to be.
It's going to be red, green, and black.
Yeah, and yellow, a little bit of yellow. You know, the yellow pages.
Diaspora. What special brand? Yes. You know, fine. Keep your money. Give us the passport. That's cheap.
The passport. Because the thing about it is that I believe we know how to create the
value. I want to be clear. Give them the passport. I don't need the passport.
No, give them. Yeah. Give
them the passport. We have to be very clear who we're talking about. Give them the passport.
Because I think the money, I understand.
If your father came from Africa, if you know your village, if your grandmother knows you, even if you're born in America, I'm sorry. The passport is not for you. The passport is not for you. That is just Peres talking.
No, I get that. I think you're 100% right, but I also feel like, you know, the money, and like you said, and plus, but my belief is that our people, and even African Americans, we have such an ability to be able to create things that are worth buying and selling. I think, and that's been historically, you've seen it, right? Our culture, our practices, everything. I always say that we are historically, we have been the most disposable source of the most productive, disposable source of income for the world in everything that we do. Because whether you talk about our physical labor, whether you talk about our creative, our abilities to be able to do things in our form of entertainment, we have done that for centuries. And now it's more so having some type of access to these various spaces. I feel like you give them the place to go and the freedom to be able to move and settle and do those things. We grow because we have the innate ability to be able to create things worth buying. There's nothing, no argument.
Yeah. If we make space for our own to thrive,
Lord.
I mean, when you want to think about what people like Oprah, Viola Davis, I have them on my wall. Beyonce, Serena Williams, Shonda Rhimes, what these women have achieved in spite of. You have to, it's a wonder. And then you say, what would this country have been if that had been removed and they were just allowed to thrive in every area? America would be fine. America would be fun. America, we'd be looking at America with a telescope. I'd be like, hey, those people at the moon over there having fun. That'd be fun. These moon landings would have happened. There would have been colonies. Americans would be living in the moon right now. But no. You literally shackled a people. Now, let's just talk about the diaspora. Let's talk about even Haiti and what France did to Haiti. You shackled an entire race of people. And if you'd have removed those shackles, this world collectively, let me just not even talk about this, just a collective, the diaspora would be fun. Because Africa and its natural resources, if you allowed Africa to decide how those resources are dispersed around the world, you'd have a different type of world. I want to hope that they would put greed in check. Because capitalism does not check greed at all.
No.
I'm trying to, because I think, sometimes I sit in my own house over here and I have this weird random thoughts. Like I ask myself, why is it that we cannot remember how to build the pyramids? Now, the West will say that's because aliens built them.
Stop it.
But the African in me will say, if I was an African, why would we stop building the pyramids? And I would say, well, it's because those pyramids, if you look at them, required a lot of human beings to do it, a lot of death, a lot of destruction. As Africans, what we would say is this thing is taking too many lives to augment one person. It is not worth it. We will never do this again. This is the last one. We will burn this thing. We will burn and kill all the architects so that nobody remembers how to do this, so that we are never put in a position to do this again. Boom. That feels to me like an African response to something that they don't like. Because like we say, zero to machete, Africans will tolerate something long enough and then they will completely decimate and wipe it out. Completely erase it. Erase it. So that it is never repeated again. And I feel like that's what happened with the pyramids. I feel like people did it first time and somebody says, oh, matter, this thing is going to be a problem. Because the next king that asks us to do this, we're going to lose more lives and it's not worth it. Then the next one comes and they're like, see, I told you guys this thing was going to be a problem. People are like, okay, wait until the next one. Then the next one comes and we're going to make him a small one and then we're killing him. And that's what happens. Because you know how Africans think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how Africans think, like, this is ridiculous. Why are we're not making a fourth one of this, man. We are not doing a fourth. We're going to kill all these architects over here. We're going to take all the plants. We're going to burn it. So nobody ever has to do this again. That to me makes more sense than aliens showed up and, alienated, whatever the thing.
I have an interesting question for you because I think when you talk about us as
we
Africans,
are so random right now, by the way, but let's
no, it's cool. This is what I like at the end of the day. I like it. It's organic. It's fresh. I like it. I'll figure it out at the end. But
you have to check me, dude, because I will take trains and planes and automobiles and just go places.
Let's go. I'm with you. I'm ready to fly and ride the train with you. Let's go. I'm ready for all that adventure. So this is an interesting question I was going to ask is because you brought up the scenario of like if Russia and everything, if everybody was to decide they want to recolonize. So now I started having this question where I said, if we were to start, let's say we said we're going to start over and we get rid of all, let's say there was some major catastrophe. This world went through some, big apocalypse, and now everybody has to start from square one, and each race knows who they are. Who thrives?
Who knows? That's the good thing about hypotheticals. Anybody can. The problem I think with Africa right now is, my father came to visit me. I love interacting with human beings, because human beings have a tendency to say things that last. My father came to see me after had gone to see my brother, and he had been in Colombia. My father just said, he was just thinking out loud. He was like, what is it about us Black people? We are always struggling no matter where we are. Father asked the question. Father answered the question. And then my dad said something so profound. He said, that is because we are always following these white people. We are never leading. And that was wisdom. And the thing about us is we are still playing the game that the colonialists left behind. The borders are still there. Britain knows where its colonies begin and end. So does France. Every time something pops off in Ivory Coast, Germany doesn't show up. France does. Why?
Because that's them. That's their territory still.
Something is popping off in Kenya, it's either the United Kingdom or the United States. Why? Because they know where their territories begin and end. We've removed those maps over there. Now, like I said once, we can't remove those maps from I don't see those borders being removed during my lifetime. But I'm removing them here. That's why when I see a Niger, I'm like, brother. Because I've removed the border here, because I know my people came from up north and came down, which is not to say some branch of my people did not go west. I know most of them went south. And then they stopped in Uganda, they were in Tanzania. Who knows? We could have ended up in South Africa if not for the borders. But the continent is connected. The people are connected. So for me, I love the continent. When you hear people say, I say Peres, for me, I'm about Africa. And I believe as Africans, we should be about Africa as a collective. Because then that means that if somebody does something to Congo, I show up. I'm like, what are you doing to the Congo? What are you doing to South Africa? Because we used to do that. We used to fight. We fought and we stood together with South Africa for the end of apartheid. And this is the entire diaspora. We used to fight for each other, with each other, alongside each other. And that has become, I think in music, it's still there to some extent. I'm hoping. But in more way, if we can find more ways to work with each other, like I love the fact that I can do a project like Bound, where I'm from Kenya. Tanae Carter, who's one of the producers, is from Florida. She's African-American. And then you have Yabo Kwayana, who's the DP, is from the Dominican Republic. That's the diaspora. Then you have Aissatou Diallo, who's also there, one of the associate producers, whose father is from, I want to say her father is from Guinea. Her mother is African-American. Then you have, what's my friend? Oh my God, I don't want to, I have to say your name. Hey! Omera, I have to say where's the poster? Oh, Jesus, I don't have a poster beside me. I cannot believe I've forgotten this brother's name. He's one of the producers out of Minnesota. That brother came in and that brother helped me. I cannot even begin. I'm not going to move forward until I say his name, because his name is worth saying. Okay, it's on YouTube. Where are you? Where are you? I'm sorry, but you gotta let me say his name, because
I'm waiting.
I have to say his name. Reggie Anderson.
Okay.
Yes, Reggie Anderson. He is from Sierra Leone. He's not Liberia. That brother has a story to tell, because he left during the war.
Oh, really?
That brother has a story to tell.
Wow.
And I'll let him tell that story one day. But I sat down and listened to that brother's story, and I said, bruh, you went through all that? He was like, dude. I was like, Jesus. And if you meet him, the most smilingest person you'll ever meet. He's just out here making cinema about the same thing. very inspirational human being, Reggie Anderson, out of Minnesota.
Wow.
Love you, bro. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, it was an amazing, I think you all did an amazing project that I think will continue to last. And I think we've talked about a little bit about moving forward. So we've talked about the bridge, we've talked about the diaspora passport of sorts. But like one thing I noticed is that, of course, I think we're finding more ways to tell our stories. There are lots, like one example I think I'm sure you're familiar with is the African Artists Association, which I think is
Yes,
really big
three
in the
A's.
West. Yeah, 3A's,
Yes.
right? Have a couple of friends who are very involved in that as well. And I think about what they're some of the people who are part of it, they speak on trying to find more ways to tell our stories. And I think there's an increase now of voices in the writing room, in the studios, who are now trying to depict as accurate as possible the story. They're not leaving it to the Brad Pitts of the world and to be able to tell our stories for us. But where do you think that will potentially lead or end up, or the impact that can have for us overall?
Of telling our stories?
Yeah, telling our story in the big screen, right? Like now we're no longer just...
I will tell you, I'll just give you one case study. You can go sit and case study this, everybody. Go case study Korea. And the importance of telling your own stories. And the pride you have as a nation, as a people. When you see your own stories told in your own language, and then you see the world consuming your stories. Right now, if somebody decided they were going to bomb Korea, the whole world would have a fit. Because you are not bombing the land of the Squid Game. You're not bombing the land of, because now we have got K-drama. To know. And let's talk about Asia for a minute.
Okay, let's talk.
There's a sadness in me when it comes to Asia. Because I did not realize, I started watching Asian content a while back. Maybe I want to say 5-6 years. For some people, they've been watching it longer. Watching content out of Thailand, out of Japan, out of Korea, out of China, out of Taiwan, out of Hong Kong, out of India. And you begin to realize, wow, we have really been inundated with Western narratives. Because I feel like I'm watching a new group of people. But they've always been here. You know what I mean?
No, I do.
Like now when you sit and you watch content out of Nigeria and Africa, you just feel there's a hunger you have.
Yeah.
That you didn't realize you had, this hunger, because we are so inundated with British and American stories. It's just so much of it. That when you turn your glance to Korea, I sometimes watch their project and I cry and I feel like I need to apologize for taking so long to get there. I do.
Really?
I feel very sad. I should have gotten here sooner. I should have known about you sooner. I should have known about you sooner. I'm curious about human beings. I love human beings. Everybody will tell you, I'm not a dog person. I'm not a cat person. I'll tell you, I'm a human person. That's my favorite species. That's my favorite animal. My favorite pet ever are humans. There's a sorrow, and I don't know. And I feel like something was denied us. Stories about Asia, stories about Africa, Latin America. I mean, I've been watching things. I watch things from Chile, Colombia, Argentina, and but it took me a while because I was watching Latin America for a while, even before I got into Asia. And I remember watching something like, this is so good. Like, why isn't everybody, because it was hard to come by. So like, why isn't everybody? So now I have like Viki on my, I spend a lot of time just watching Viki, which is like all the content from out of Korea or whatever, or Asia. And I just was like, oh, I just feel so bad that it took the world. The world should have been more inclusive a lot earlier. That's what I'm basically saying.
Yeah.
We should have been watching content from Africa a lot earlier, a lot of content from Asia earlier, we should have been watching this a lot sooner. I should have been watching this when I was 15, 16, not when you're 30s. We should have been seeing this because the industry was there. It was just, there was this need to promote this really Western idea of what the world is. So when I watch stories from Korea, what is interesting is the men are always crying. And I'm just like, this is a different perspective on masculinity.
You don't see that. And you don't see that in the Western world.
See, it's a different look at masculinity. Very different. And I love that. I'm like, wow. Now, it's all dramatized. Doesn't mean that's how Korean men actually are. Right. But in cinema, it's different. And I'm always fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by things like that. Like, wow, look at this.
But then when you think about like us, our people, and even like Nollywood and Gollywood, and even to some extent Bollywood, how serious do you think in that time they would have taken our stories? Because I felt
they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have. So I'm crying for something that cannot have been. No. Maybe it could have been, I don't know, it would require a different mindset. Yeah. I'm just saying I am aware of the fact that it has taken this long. Yeah. I'm aware of it. I'm just saying I'm aware of it. So it makes me sad. But I'm glad that the younger generation are going to have all this. Netflix is just going to serve them, everybody. Yeah. That's why I love Netflix.
Yeah. All right. So my last question, because I really appreciate your time. I have like two, but my 1.5, let's just call it 1.5. But so the question I have is, in lieu of, since you're such a history fanatic like I am, what are your thoughts regarding what's happening in some states now in the US as far as how they're trying to hide and stop the sharing of African-American history? Because I feel like we spent so much time talking about building these bridges and being able to tell each other our history and things that are missing. What do you think this is going to do as far as impacting our people on both sides? Because if there is a concerted effort to hide and ban the histories being told, the true history being told, and not these small pictures that we've talked about, what is that going to do for our efforts to try to continue to build that bridge and connect us and reconcile our differences?
Well, it's sad, but it's not surprising.
No, it's not surprising.
It's not surprising because when you study the history of the United States, especially when you study desegregation, you begin to understand that desegregation was really an attempt to get Black people to desegregate white spaces, but never white people to desegregate Black spaces. That's why the Black spaces died, because all the money was flowing one direction. Black people were going to the white businesses, they were going to the white, but nobody was bringing it back this other way. And so it has always been a push from whiteness to keep Blackness that way, and Blackness pushing into whiteness. If that thing had been a double tiered where it was back and forth, we would not be here. But that push has always been because of fear. And that fear has been allowed to just exist for years. It's just been sitting there. And what do you mean, Peres? Because even when I look back at the Civil War, I always find it very interesting that a whole civil war was fought. People keep talking about how the South was treasonous, but nobody in the South ever paid a price. They were forgiven for it. So if you forgive people when they commit a crime, they don't really feel like they committed a crime. That's why they keep saying the South will rise again. And here they are rising because they never felt they committed a crime, because you did not actually hold anybody accountable and say, next time you do this, we'll do this, this, and that. So they can come and do Jan 6 because they know, nothing will happen. We did the whole Civil War, nothing happened. Yeah. So when you stop holding people accountable, when you expect one group of people to constantly be repairing a nation, you're asking for the impossible. You can't have 13 million people fix a whole nation. Everybody needs to be involved. That's why when I hear Black people saying we're tired, dang it, it is exhausting. But I will say this with my whole chest. Every single time I've looked at the history of the United States, and I've looked at when African Americans, Black Americans asked America to make a different choice, the country has always moved forward.
That's true.
So I will say this, and people will say, oh, you're saying that because you're Black. Well, possibly. But I've always felt that the Black people in this country hold the the soul is the soul of America.
Oh, without question.
And they're trying to tell you, this destiny you're trying to reach, this is how you get there. But you refuse to listen. And if you refuse to listen, there's only one outcome. You cannot erase Black people out of America. It's absolutely ridiculous. You cannot. The very definition of what people out there know to be America is Black culture. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about? You can wear whatever you want. White man, white woman. But unless Beyonce or Jay-Z puts it on, nobody cares.
It means nothing.
It means nothing to the rest of the world.
Nothing.
It means nothing. And I've always said, our lot in life as Black people is we were never meant to play small. We can't. It's not in our DNA, dude. It's not even in our skin.
Meant to stand out.
You know? Arguably, we have the skin that stands out. I don't care. You can go into
meant to stand out.
That skin stands out. You can't pretend you're anything but you.
No, we're meant to stand out. You can try and cover it all you want to.
So just accept that you are going to stand out, and then have a plan of who you're going to be, what you're going to represent, and be bold.
So what do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done? Since you love humans and your work is related to humans, what do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done, sis?
Let me tell you what I want. I want to lay down and die and cross over to the ancestral plane, and for my ancestors to say, you did good. That's all. What it's going to be, I don't know, because I follow them. They chart the course, I just do it. So what I want is the day I lay down, yeah, you did good. That's all I know. That's all I know. And I don't know, my ancestors, talking about my ancestors gets me very emotional because they're very real to me.
Yeah. No, I see that. I feel that. That's a real thing.
Yeah, they're very real to me, very. And all of them, all the way back. And there's so many too. There's some who witnessed the slave trade. So there's a reason why some stories are being said, because they want those stories said. Because when we realize that there's a phrase, and I don't know who coined it, and I love it, I am my ancestors' dreams realized. That's a powerful statement. Because you can always think of, when you see, you can tell your great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother sitting there saying, one day. And then you become that one day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing. Yeah. One day. And I wish all of us understood that. You're that one day. So when you come to America, don't conform, inform. You're not here to conform. You're here to inform. You're here to watch. You're here to change the conversation. You're here to do what Africa is supposed to do. We don't play along. Africans are honest. Africans are bold. They're resilient above all things. God, Africans are resilient. Jesus. We've never had one benevolent president in the whole continent. Maybe
Mandela.
Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
But look at 70, we are going 100 years deep with dictators and whatnot, and the people are still fighting.
To this very day.
This very day. Leaders who some of us didn't even choose. One day that continent will be free.
Will we live to see it? That's the question I ask myself all the time.
Probably not. But those who are destined to live to see it will. One day. Now we're the ancestors saying one day. And we'll lay down and some kids will come over and we'll be like, you did good.
Sis, that's powerful. That's making me emotional, because now I'm thinking about my descendants, right?
Yeah.
And my dream for them, and for one of my descendants to be that one day.
Can you imagine?
Man.
They cross over and you're like, you did good.
Wow.
That's just the joy of knowing that they did it. And that's why I never lose hope of anything. There's always hope. Even when we come in here and we are wrestling, Africans and African Americans and wrestling, and you'll meet the Black people like, I want nothing to do with Africa. That's fine. But just know Africa wants everything to do with you.
With you. Oof.
When you're ready, she'll be there.
Still waiting for you with open arms.
When you're ready, she'll be there. You can't
Mhm.
fall. It's like kids who've been abandoned. Then a mother shows up and says, "Hi, I'm your mom." Not all of them are going to be like, "Oh my God, I've been looking for you." Some will be like, "Fuck off." You know what I mean? Because there's pain there.
Mhm.
But you always have to leave the door open, leave the light on.
Mm.
We will die with some of them never returning home, but their descendants become I want to go check this out. You never know. But what I do know, what always gives me hope, is that we all lay down, we all cross into the ancestral plane. You all meet each other eventually.
We have to.
You do. You meet each other eventually. In that space. You know. Life is beautiful, I tell you.
Yeah. Oh man, this is amazing. I just want to thank you so much. My Kenyan sister. I'm so listen, you're in trouble. I just want to let you know, Sister Peres Owino, you're in trouble now because now you're my sister. You shared tears together. You're my sister now. There's nothing you can do.
I'm coming to visit.
Come and see me. There's nothing you can do now because you're my sister.
Yes.
There's no borders that's keeping us apart. Nothing at all. So we're here. We're here. And if you do anything embarrassing, I still have to say,
come for me.
You're one of ours.
You're like, I'm one of you, but you said that, and you know how we do in Africa. Do not insult her. Then you come to her and be like, what the fuck are you doing out there? You're making us look bad. He's like, I'm sorry, brother. You go apologize.
As in?
You know, like, hey. But here, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I'm coming to visit.
You have to, please.
I need somebody to make me some egusi soup.
Oh, say less. Don't even, why are you even asking? That is not,
What? Listen, I make hot pepper soup in my own house. Okay. I have my I make that in my own house. I had to figure out how to make hot pepper soup in my own house. I have the suya thing, but you know what? Suya, you need somebody who knows how to make suya. Because I tried and I've gone to restaurants, I'm like, this is not suya. I don't know what you're trying to do, but this is not it.
Oh, don't worry. That one is nothing. All those things you're asking for, these are regular, like, it's like water. It's accessible like water. Why you even, that one is nothing. It's regular now. Why you, don't even stress yourself. That one is correct. That's what you're coming for. That's like 25 cents potato chips. Don't even worry. We'll we'll send you off with all the suya that you want. The suya pepper. No, that one's
listen, you give me suya, I go put that thing in the mail and send it to myself. Listen, I do not want to go to the airport and somebody tell me I cannot bring my food. Because these people will do that. I will put it in an ice box and fly it.
Don't mind them. We'll send. If we have to send it to the ground, we'll do it FedEx next day. We'll have that suya to you.
Listen, I'm that crazy. I have put food in ice boxes and I'll be like, I'm mailing this to myself. I was like, you do not have food in that LA. I said, listen, it's not about having the food, it's about having this food.
Exactly.
In LA.
Yeah.
I have looked, man. I have looked.
If you're saying egusi soup, that one, don't worry. My sister, come and let me know. Come and we'll organize you. You have
I want to see the children. I want to see the Pekin that you got. I want to see them all. The little ones.
Oh, don't give me trouble. You can even take them with you, please. Tell them all the stories you want to tell them. Please take them with you.
Are they boys or are they girls?
I have girls. My oldest is a girl. My middle child is a boy. He's the only boy, so he's there. Yeah. You
have a 3-year-old boy. Where check? He's about to get to 4. Good luck.
I need all the luck. I told you this already.
Like the girls calm down eventually. They calm down and they become all angsty. They're in their feelings. And,
God.
The boys.
Listen, I don't know. I think to me, I'm scared about the opposite because the teenage years.
No, the girls will be a problem for the mother. They won't be a problem for you. They will love you.
That is true. Here's
the question: are you educating them here? Are you educating them in Nigeria? Where are you educating them?
As far they're here, but they travel. We haven't traveled. The little ones haven't traveled yet. Actually, that's the thing because of pandemic and everything. But they need to. They have to have both experiences. It's important.
I think the reason why I have been denied having children is because if I had one, that child would be in a boarding school somewhere in Africa. Oh, that child would be so depressed.
Oh God.
I mean, like, look, I went to boarding school in Kenya. Okay, you can handle.
Listen, Anybody who
Yeah,
goes to boarding school in Africa, you come out of that place a very independent person.
that's
You
what
be
I
able
did.
to, you can make it through anything.
Listen, the hunger you
Anything.
deal with,
Anything. You can make it through anything in that
you can make it
life.
through anything. You can make
After
it with
boarding school.
no. Sometimes you're just hungry, and you're so hungry you just get an education.
Yeah.
You're so hungry you just focus on studying because you don't want to stop.
There's nothing else you want to think about.
Let me read this biology book, my dear, because hey, if I
Mm.
stop for a split second, it is the hunger. Hey, the weevils we ate. You know, when you eat the beans, and there's like the swimming weevils, and they tell you that's protein.
Oh God, what?
Listen, we come far, brother. We
Oh
come
my
far.
God.
We've
Oh
come
my
far.
God. No. But at the end, listen, this has been fantastic. I have to even just say thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peres Owino. This has been a blast. I really, really appreciate this.
We didn't even talk about Njinga. Are you sure,
Oh no, don't listen. You're coming. You said you're coming, Abby. So you're coming. That means when you're coming, we're going to turn.
Yeah, but what Njinga? You gotta put that what Njinga. It's right now streaming on Netflix.
Oh yeah, Njinga. Well, yeah, Njinga on Netflix. Jada Pinkett,
On
written by
Netflix.
Peres Owino.
You gotta put that in there, bro.
I'm gonna say everything. I got you. I'm gonna say it on the intro. You didn't even say hi. Can you say hi?
Oh, hi guys. Hi. We're doing this backwards, by the way. This is literally the end of the 1.5 hours. I'm telling you right now. And we're here because we wanted to talk about the show Njinga that is on Netflix right now. It premiered February 15th for Black History Month. Thanks to Jada Pinkett Smith and Westbrook and Utopia and Netflix and my writing partner, my ace, Nene Iwuji from Nigeria, Igbo sister, Luo Kenya, Peres Owino. So check it out, 4-part docu-series. It's really a great way to understand not only Queen Njinga, but also to understand what was happening in Africa at the time and the birthing of the diaspora. So watch it on Netflix, love it, give it 2 thumbs up, because if you watch it to the end and you give it 2 thumbs up, we get to make more of it. That's how that works.
That's good to know. That's good to tell us that so we can be able to continue to support it and put the 2 thumbs up.
So that's going to do it for this episode of My Black is Transnational. If you like what you heard, please be sure to rate, subscribe, and review the podcast. You can learn more about this podcast by visiting our website at blacktransnational.com. You can follow me, the host, at blacktransnational_ on Instagram, or you can follow the podcast at Black Transnational Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. So, until next time, my name is Dr. Kalechi Bay Lamberts. My Black is Transnational, and I hope by the end of this, yours will be too. Peace.